please be seated. The court is now back in session. And before I hand the floor to the defense teams, I'd like to inquire from my fellow judges if you wish to put questions to the witness. And Judge Lavenge, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, witness. I'll put a few questions to you to have you clarify some of the answers you gave this morning. This morning, you stated that after the 17 April victory, you went to Kampong Som to seek aid provided by China. Can you tell us or clarify when exactly you went to Kampong Som for the first time to pick up the aid?
I cannot recall the date. I forget about it. For the first trip, there were 50 of us who went to pick up the aid equipment and tools, and basically there were vehicles shipped from China for us.
Mais est-ce que vous vous souvenez, monsieur, si c'était...
But do you remember whether it was several months after the 17 April victory, or only a few weeks after that, or only 1 month after that? Can you give us an estimate of the time after the victory when you went to Kampong Som?
It was about 3 months after the 17 April 1975 period. I could say it is between 3 to 4 months after that. I cannot recall the exact months, the exact number of months.
Quand vous étiez à côté de Pochentong,
when you were near Pochentong, did you see Chinese planes land on Pochentong Airport?
Yes, I did. I saw Chinese planes landing at the airport, and a plane would land every 2 or 3 days. That is when I was there, although I did not stay regularly at the airport site. However, during the period that I was at the Pochentong airport, I saw a Chinese plane land every few days.
est-ce qu'il y avait des...
Were there any planes from other countries, that is countries other than China?
No, there was no other planes except those from China.
Les avions chinois,
Did Chinese planes transport passengers, or they also transported equipment?
They were cargo planes transporting materials. And when the plane flew back, it would transport soldiers who were sent for training in China. And each time a group of 50 or 60 soldiers would be sent on a plane back to China for training.
les passagers qui arrivaient...
Regarding passengers arriving on the Chinese planes. Were these people Chinese advisors or Chinese coming to Cambodia? Do you have any idea as to who the people who are transported on those planes were?
I saw cargoes or equipments that the plane brought in, and I saw some Chinese as well. Because I was not part of the inner circle of the airplane, that is to receive the passengers, I did not know the full details of the passengers coming off the planes. So I basically knew only about the equipment and tools that were brought in via plane, and I saw some Chinese.
Quand vous êtes allé à Kampong Som,
When you went to Kampong Som, you said this morning that the material or equipment included trucks and machines used for digging canals. You said there were pans, hose. Can you specify whether there were indeed equipment used for digging canals?
There were hose, carrying baskets, and for machineries, there were those machineries for the purpose of digging canals. There were bulldozers as well. So those heavy machineries were meant for canal construction. And those machineries would be stored at the airport for further distribution, but I was not sure as to which provinces were those machineries distributed to.
mais ce matin,
But this morning, it appears that you said that some of the equipment was to be sent to the site of the Kampong Cham airport, and the other equipment was meant for other regions. Is that indeed what you stated? Among the equipment sent was part destined for the airport construction site and part for other regions?
Yes, indeed, that was the case. We were told the batch of machineries for the airport construction was in a separate batch for those machineries destined for other work-related purposes. And those equipment will be further sent to other provinces, though I did not know the details. And we brought those equipment along in a convoy of vehicles. And there was all kinds of equipment and tools, including those hose and baskets aiming for the construction of dams and canals. There were also saws, automatic saws for cutting woods, etc. But as I said earlier, I did not know to which zones those equipment and tools were later distributed.
est-ce que vous vous souvenez quand, pour la
Do you remember when, for the first time, you delivered equipment on the Kampong Cham airport construction site? Was that immediately after the reception of the first batch of equipment or at another time?
As for tracks, we drove them to Phnom Penh. As for other machineries, namely rollers, they would be placed on the train, and the train would depart the port and arrive at Tep Pok district. That is for I refer to those machineries for the airport construction. And the equipment that we brought in on trucks would be driven to be stored near Dong for the purpose of building the airport. And a lot of equipment were brought in to be stored at the airport warehouse around May or June, if it is according to my best recollection.
Quand vous dites
When you say May or June, is that May or June 1975? That is shortly after the victory of the Khmer Rouge, or May, June in the year 1976?
That is after the liberation of Phnom Penh in 1975. I refer to the months in 1975.
donc ce matériel
So the equipment was taken as of May or June 1975 to warehouses close to the airport construction site. Is that your testimony?
Yes, that is correct. The machineries, including rock breakers, would be stored right near the mountain, as they would use sheet to cover those rock breakers.
est-ce que vous pourriez nous dire
If you do remember, can you tell us when you got in touch for the first time with Chinese advisors?
The first contact I made with the Chinese when I went to pick up the equipment, I went along with him, and I was waiting to receive the equipment at the port. But I cannot tell you the dates, as I cannot recall it. And when I transported the equipment to the airport, they came along in the convoy, and there were already Chinese on the ground to receive them.
est-ce que vous pourriez nous donner une
Can you give us an idea of the number of Chinese advisors who were present during that period?
ce nombre a changé dans le temps
And did that number change with time? Did it increase with time? Did it decrease? Did it vary? Can you enlighten us on that point, please?
Initially, the first time I saw the Chinese, I saw a group of 50 Chinese advisors when I brought them to repair old planes. However, when I was assigned to measure the terrain for the airport projects, I saw many more Chinese who were technical advisors. They were experts in the field of building constructions or in laying electricity cable, but I cannot tell you the exact number of those Chinese technical advisors. that there were quite a large number of them, and they were brought in by 3 vehicles to the airport construction site.
Est-ce que ces conseillers chinois parlaient?
Were those Chinese advisors speaking Khmer, or they spoke through interpreters?
Of course, there were always interpreters. There were some Chinese interpreters and some Khmer interpreters.
Est-ce qu'il y avait des réunions de travail?
Were there working sessions attended by Khmer officials and Chinese advisors?
I did not know about the meeting, as I was not allowed to attend the meeting of those officials. If they were to hold a meeting, they would organize it at their place amongst those Chinese, and I was not part of the meeting. And only after the meeting, if I were assigned to carry out this task or that task, then I would be told to do so. But I personally did not attend the meeting. And only after the meeting concluded, sometimes the chief of the office would give us a piece of paper with instructions as what we needed to do or to pick up.
Alors, j'aimerais maintenant qu'on...
I would like us to talk about working conditions on the airport construction site specifically. You have told us that you received instructions. May I know whether there were work quotas imposed as per each worker? Were there any quantifiable objectives imposed on workers?
No, there was no instruction on such quota. However, a unit would be assigned a specific overall quota for the unit itself. For example, a group would be assigned to clear a plot of a 10-meter wide land, and the whole group had to complete that work quota, but there was no individual work quota assignment.
Vous avez dit ce matin que...
This morning you stated that one of the most difficult tasks consisted in breaking rocks. Can you describe to us in further detail under what conditions, under what working conditions rocks were crushed? How did they go about it, and was it dangerous?
Rock breaking process was that first they drilled a hole into the rock, and the drill was a large one with a supply of water to cool down the drill head. However, it was pretty hard work, as the holder had to control the movement of the drill, and then they had to hurry to complete the drill, because after the lunch break they would have to use the explosion to break the rock, and they had to rush to drill 4 or 5 holes for people to place explosive in, and sometimes the fragments from the rock hit the workers or the drillers, And of course they knew what was coming, but it was from the over-exhaustion that sometimes they could not run fast enough, and they were hit by rock fragment when the explosive was ignited. And the rock breaking unit was the one who had the most accidents during the construction of the airport.
Est-ce que vous pourriez nous dire s'il y avait...
Can you tell us whether there were working hours imposed in the case of workers on the airport construction site? And were these working hours the same for all workers, or they varied from one group of workers to another?
The working hours were the same across the board for all workers. In the morning, each unit would depart to their respective work site. For example, for those who had to carry the earth or the sand, and we all rested at 11, and we had lunch at 11:30, and we started again at 1:30, and the working hours remained the same for all the workers on site.
Concrètement, à quelle heure...
In concrete terms, when did the workers set out in the morning to go to the site, and at what time in the evening did they stop working?
It varied. For the morning time. We usually left around 6:30, and the work started at 7, and we stopped at 5:30 in the afternoon.
Est-ce que les conseillers chinois qui travaillaient sur le site...
Now, did the Chinese advisors working on the airport construction site have the same working hours, and did they have the same food regime as the Cambodians working on the site?
No, they ate a different set of food. They had a meal in the morning, another meal at noon, and another meal in the evening at the Chan Sari barrack. And only the Khmer soldiers who worked there ate a separate food from the food given to the Chinese.
And were the banquets ever held for the Chinese advisors?
When I was with the Chinese advisors, usually a reception or a banquet was held weekly. And once they went to repair old planes at the various provinces, the same thing happened. I mean, they had a banquet on a weekly basis.
What was the menu of this banquet? Was it very far removed from the ordinary menu of the workers on the work site? For example, would people drink beer during these banquets?
Yes, during the banquet, they had their own beer to drink. I don't know whether it was called Singa or something. It was in a blue bottle. Even on the days the banquet was not held, they have abundant food to eat and a beer to drink. It was in absolute contrast to the food that we foot soldiers ate on site. When there was rice, we were given a thick gruel, but at other times only watery gruel was given to us. For the Chinese, they regularly had bread and had their traditional noodle. And of course, I observed that when I escorted or accompanied them to work at various provinces to repair those old planes.
And did the Chinese witness accidents that would happen on the work site, or did they witness any suicides
Ou
or disappearances? According to you, did they know what was going on the work site?
Yes, they knew about disappearance, about suicide, and about diseases, namely malaria, and of course they learn about those events through interpreters. And we had malaria medicine, and the Chinese were aware that there were also medicine for the treatment of malaria on site. And in case of disappearance, as in my case, and that later on I reappeared, they were perplexed. They did not know what was going on as I disappeared from the airport worksite, and later on they saw me at the radar section.
And when they saw you again, aside from just being perplexed, did they ask you questions on why you had disappeared?
Answer. The interpreter asked me about that. The interpreter asked me where were these people sent to. And I told the interpreter that maid helped me, and I went back to work. Later on, I did not dare to walk away from my sleeping quarter or from the place where I work, that is at the mountain. And at that time, I was told I had to move all the materials from the mountain to some load. Later on, I was not with those people because they made problems on me.
I didn't understand who created problems for you.
I am difficult to speak. The unit chiefs and my superior, if I could not be at the place in time, or if I made the trucks destroyed, and if I broke some things or some materials, I would be blamed. They mentioned about the heavy machinery. the unit chief at the time said that if one lamp broke, this lamp could be sold and used to feed the whole people in Kampong Cham. And it was said that one life could not be compared with that lamp. When I was told to drive the vehicle uphill, I was warned and alerted to be careful. If I if my truck or vehicle roll off the street or road, I would be in danger. So I had to be careful when I drove the vehicle uphill. And he said that one lamp could be used to feed the whole people of Kampong Chhnang. And I did not know who he was referring to, because at that time I could not see people in Kampong Chhnang province. They had been evacuated elsewhere.
All of the people who originally lived around the airport, had they all been evacuated? So there was not one single original inhabitant left on site. Is that what I must understand?
Yes, no inhabitants in the province. They had been evacuated elsewhere.
And the workers who were working on the airport work site, were they ever given any days of rest?
Answer: it was during the festival time on the 17th April that they could rest. It was named as the national holiday, and during this time we could rest. But before we could take a rest, we had to join the meeting.
Was there, for example, one day of rest every 10 days?
Answer: no, there was no such a break time set.
So you're telling us that there was only a day of rest when there was a national holiday. So that means 17 April. But how many days were there in the year when one could rest?
Answer: all soldiers did not enjoy resting time. It was on that day, the national holiday, that we could rest. We had no breaks for 2 or 1 day. No resting time at all at my place. Although the Chinese experts had rest, we Khmer workers did not have that latitude.
I just want to get back to the working schedule again, the working schedule every day. So in the morning or in the afternoon, aside from the lunch break, were there other breaks?
Witness: I could not get the gist of the question.
Vous avez expliqué
You explained that you would leave for work in the morning at around 6:30 and you would arrive on site at around 7, and then there was a break at around 11. And at around 11:30 you had your lunch, and then you would work in the afternoon until I believe it was 5 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. But during the morning and during the afternoon, were there other breaks?
Answer. There was no resting time or break time, as mentioned by Your Honor. And if we were too exhausted, the unit chief or group chiefs would allow us to take a short break. There was no such break. For example, a short break between 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning. But as I said, if we were too exhausted or tired, we would be allowed by our unit chief or group chief to take a short rest. But if in other units or in other groups, perhaps the chiefs were too strict, they did not allow workers to take even a short rest.
So the only break, in fact, was the lunch break, which would begin at 11. And when would it finish? When would you get back to work in the afternoon?
Answer. We resumed our work at 1:30 p.m. By that time, we had to go back to work from our kitchen or dining hall.
And the workers at the airport work site, did they have to write their biographies?
Answer. Everyone was required to make a brief biography. And we were instructed to speak the truth, nothing but the truth for the party. And as for the assignment or duties, we were instructed to perform strictly. And we had to submit a brief biography every week. When we were assigned to work in the forest for 1 or 2 weeks, we had to submit the report after we returned from the forest. And if we were asked to work in the province which was far away from this work site, we were required to write a short report and submit to the superior saying that we were loyal to the party in doing work.
Were there any elements in the biographies that could be considered as showing bad tendencies? Was this word used, this expression, bad tendencies?
Answer. They knew our biography already by the investigator, said the witness. So as for my case, my biography was known through them without waiting me to tell them everything about my family members, whether I had any member in the family who was a doctor, so on and so forth. During Khmer Rouge period, I could say that my place, or perhaps had been the first location where biographies were known through the Khmer Rouge.
And do you know what the Khmer Rouge were particularly interested in? What kind of information were they looking for?
Witness, I do not understand your question. I'm sorry, Your Honor.
In the biographies, what was the kind of information that would particularly catch the attention of the Khmer Rouge? For example, the fact of having a relative who might have served as an official or as a serviceman under Lundol. Was this the kind of information that might catch the Khmer Rouge's attention?
Answer. When I was there, I was required to inform them how many family members I had, and I had to report about the occupation, about my parents, uncle, aunts, and later on, after the biography was submitted, they would go from villages to other villages to verify it. And our biographies were verified during the 3 months, 3 years, 8 months, and 20 days. They had to know how many family members we had and what professions they held at that time.
How did you become aware of these investigations? Did someone tell you about them? How do you know about this?
I asked them about that. I secretly asked my colleague about that. I asked my colleague how could they go to villages to verify the biography. And for my case, I lived in a Krangskil commune, so they had the biography. They had my biography and went to my commune to verify. We could not hide our biography at the time.
Pour dire
And were you given instructions to list what was necessary to put in the biographies, or were you told what you should be looking for in the biographies?
They told me to write nothing but the truth. I was required to put in the biography what the professions of my parents and my siblings and relatives. At that time, I did not know my father's profession. I only wrote that he was an ordinary citizen. Someone told me to write as such, and I fill in that biography by saying that my father was a normal farmer and peasant. And later on, during the period of 3 years, 8 months, and 20 days, they came to the commune to verify my biography.
Now, I would like to begin a last series of questions regarding your arrest and your escape, because I think that's how we can call it. You said that you had understood after your arrest that you had been taken to a big prison, and then you said that you recognized that you had arrived at Tulsleng. Is that what you said?
Answer. I witnessed that. I experienced that incident. I was kicked and I fell off the vehicle. At that time I saw the flag pole and the 2 other poles which were close to the flagpole. The guide held my wrist and led me to the toilet in the school. The toilet was in the school. I was pushed into the toilet. At that time I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I had a cut on my face, and my face was swelling at that time. I could not speak clearly because of my swollen mouth. That guy took his towel and cleaned the blood stain on my face. He had a piece of paper. He drew a map and gave it to me so that I could ask for direction when I made an escape. I was so terrified at that time. I did not think of the time, what time it was at that time. I could think that perhaps I could make an escape. I did not remember that it happened at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. And when I made an escape and reached Chiroi Chongwa Bridge, it was perhaps around 4 a.m. because I could hear the sounds of the cock in the morning. And the guy told me to look for another individual at that bridge, but I could not find him. A while later, I met that individual, and he could not make any decision. He took me in a vehicle to Po Chun Tong Airport. When I arrived, no decision was made because they were afraid. And after knowing that they could not make any decision, I asked them to see mates, and afterwards I could see mates. And the 3 of them took me to see Matt. Matt was wearing a sarong at that time when I saw him, and he asked me what happened to me. I told him back I did not know, and I did not know that I was arrested. I was called to join a meeting. I told Matt at that time that there was one guy who wanted to mistreat me. After hearing all the stories, Matt asked a medic to give stitches onto my wound. the day after I was taken away from his place. I did not recall when this happened. I forget all of this. 1 week later, I was taken to Phnom Krang Daymia. Because he thought that I never met my parents, he allowed me to go and visit my home. When I went to my home, my parents were not there because they were put in a refashioning center. At that time, I made a request to see my mother at that refashioning center. I met my mother and I could see her swollen face. Later, I returned back to my place. It was perhaps around 5 p.m.
I'm going to try to backtrack a little bit. Had you already gone to Tuol Sleng before being led there during your arrest? Did you know Tuol Sleng before you had been arrested?
Answer: no. It was later, during the time I was arrested, I knew it was Tuol Sleng, and as I stated, I saw one black pole, and I asked the guide, one of my friends who helped me. He told me that that place was Tuol Sleng. He told me to keep calm and stay at that particular place so that he could go and find rice for me to eat. I have never seen him, the one who helped me, ever since. I asked other people about him, but it was in vain.
So this person who helped you, does this person have a name? Did you know this person before? And do you know why? Do you know why he helped you?
Answer: we had been staying in the same unit before, and after Phnom Penh was liberated, we were separated into our own units, and we parted each other. As I stated, we had been in the same unit, that is messengers unit. After the liberation of Phnom Penh, some of my colleagues were put in the Navy, some were put in radar units, and some were in other units. So we parted each other, and at that time I did not know my friend who helped me was at Tuol Sleng. We had been working together before.
Vous vous souvenez de son nom?
Do you remember his name?
Answer: yes. His name was Mao, Comrade Mao. He had a dark complexion and he was short. And some people may refer him as a monkey because he was good at climbing trees, and he had a large body. His body was large bill. I have been looking for him since 1979, and some of my friends told me that he died already at the time. Wood died, and some told me that he went up until Rollo. And my niece or nephew disappeared as well at Rollo Hartel, and when the opportunity came, I went to that place and I searched for my friend who helped me as well, but I could not find him.
Donc cet ami
So that friend helped you, hid you in the toilet, and gave you a map which you used to flee. You fled alone. And did he tell you where you should flee to?
Answer. Alone, I was told to go to Wen's house. He told me that before we had been working with Ta Wen, so I had to go and find Ta Wen. That's what he could help me. When I arrived at Ta Wen's house, which was located close to Choi Jongwa Bridge, the guard prevented me from entering the house. I was asked to wait for Ta Wen, and I was very dirty all over my body at that time. I had to crawl, I had to run and walk in order to reach Ta Wen's house. When Ta Wen arrived, he saw me and he asked me to go into his house. He said that he could not guarantee for my escape, so he took me to Po Chantong Airport. There were 5 people at the Po Chantong Airport: Ta Bun, Levay, Ta Wen. No one dares to make any decision on my case. I was in pain at that time because of my wounds and because it was cold at that time. In light of this, I asked them to allow me to go and see Ta Maid, and my request was granted. And when Ta Maid arrived, he asked me what happened. I told him that I did not know what happened. What happened? I told Ta Maid that I discussed with Ta Yang that I had transported a lot of rice, and it was said that I transported a rice for the enemy. After seeing Matt, he called in a medic to give stitches on my wound, and I was sent to radar unit, and I was there. I did not dare to walk anywhere else.
Est-ce que vous connaissiez celui que vous avez...
Did you know the person you called Ta Win? That person is also referred to as Ta Won. Are you talking of Ta Vin or Ta Won? Who was Ta Won?
Answer. Ta Won, he was in Division 130. I was working for him before. I worked with him during the time I was with Wei as well, and Ta Wen and Ta Met and Wei were in the same group. They were in division.
Est-ce que Taoun était le gendre
Was Tawon Tamok's cousin?
បាទ
Answer: Yes. I know that Ta Wen was the son-in-law of Ta Mok. When I was working with him, he was not so cruel. And when he needed to have food, I was asked and told to go and cook, because it was said that I was a good cook, and he always made a joke with me. He never scolded me. He was so kind, and he was not cruel to me. And he said that I was a good cook. And at that time, I was working with Mao, who helped me. We had been working for Ta Wen.
Est-ce que vous connaissiez Tamok?
Did you know Tamok? And did Tamok come to visit the Kampunchanam airport construction site?
Answer: I used to know Tamok. I rarely saw Tamok at the airfield. He was not involved in the construction of an airfield.
À voir avec la construction de l'aéroport,
If he had nothing to do with the construction of the airport, why then would he come to the site of the airport?
Answer: He was in charge of the southwest zone at that time. I did not know the reason he went to the airfield. He had been working in the army before. When I was at the real battlefield, and when I went to collect rice, I could see him. He was at the zone office. During that time, Met was in charge of the Air Force, and the Air Force was under the center from what I knew.
j'ai une toute dernière question. Est-ce que vous
This is my last question. Do you know why your parents were sent to a re-education center?
Answer: It was because my father was a village chief in the former regime. I was born already when he was the village chief. He was in the soldier before, and he had a transit rifle. And on one occasion, my father was told that the thief was stealing our cow, and he was about to take the Strong's rifle and kill that thief. Perhaps it was my father was in the soldier, was in the army. He was arrested. And 10 of my siblings and relatives arrested and detained. They were released afterward, and 9 of them survived the period.
Vật bò bố
They were living in Bobo. And on one occasion, the grenade was exploded, and my siblings could survive because the shrapnels of the grenade did not hit all of them.
Je vous remercie, monsieur.
Thank you, sir. We'll have to end here. Thank you for your contribution.
President, thank you. The hearing today comes to an end, and it will resume tomorrow on the 10th June 2015. And tomorrow we will resume hearing the testimony of Chan Mon. This information is for the public. Thank you, Mr. Chan Mon. The hearing of your testimony does not come to an end yet. You are invited to be here again tomorrow, starting from 9 a.m. Court officers, please work with vessels to send this witness Chan Mon to his residence or the place where he is staying now, and please invite him back into the courtroom tomorrow at 9 a.m. Security personnel, you are instructed the 2 accused, Mr. Nunji and Kieu Sampon, back to the detention facility of the ECCC, and please have them returned tomorrow before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.